Hello, geospatial people. I'm going to summarize what we did last class and make this video available for people who missed or uh, need a refresher, and it'll be posted in Schoology, and it'll be posted uh, on the same day that we did this lesson. So if you're looking for it, if you missed that day, find that folder. Okay, so I've already saved this map as population absolute counts versus normalized rates. And we'll talk about more about what those mean in class. But right now, this video is mainly for those who need to know what to do to make the map. Okay. Um, all right, so we're going to go to add data. You have to be logged in. Make sure you've logged into your account. Search for layers and change it from your content to ArcGIS Online. And you're going to search for USA counties. You see you've got a couple here from ESRI. These are the ones you want. And do not choose generalized. If you open up the attribute table for it, you'll see it doesn't include very much, but this one does, USA counties. So we add it, and this will take a while to load because it's a lot of data. Remember, these maps are not pictures. They're renderings of data. Okay, so switch it to content, and you can see we have it. Take a quick peek at the data table. It's always good to inspect the data right away. It's how I discovered that the other layer is not appropriate. We need to be able to see the demographic information, like the white, black, Asian, etc. But please note that the way it's listed here is not the way it'll be listed when we're working with it. ArcGIS Online does everything by alphabetical when you're doing the analysis, but the data is actually entered this way. But you'll see what I mean in a moment. The key is to just make sure you inspect the data to make sure it has what you need. Okay, see how it has to re-render? Okay, so now we're going to change the style. And instead of just showing location only, we're going to change this to whites. And see, I have to go all the way to the bottom to find whites this time. And that's because it's displaying it in this list alphabetically. All of the attributes that are in that table are displayed alphabetically. And I'm not going to do anything else to it because except switch it from the circles, the dots of population, change it to counts and amounts by color, and then just take a look at it. Areas that are dark have a lot of white population, and areas that are lighter have less white population. And you might find that a little surprising because the Midwest is known for being very white, but this isn't about concentration. This is just about where there are a lot of white people. And everybody knows that in cities or in our urban areas, we have more people. So it makes sense that it's in like the Northeast and down in Florida, around Denver, Chicago, Seattle, and in Southern California. Okay, so let's now, and in Arizona, but those are all retired people. All right, so let's go to change this from white into Hispanics. Note that we're just looking at totals, total counts. This is called absolute counts. So we got to find the Hispanic. There we are. And it'll update automatically. And we just have to go back to counts and amounts. And well, it looks different, but sort of similar. Northeast, Florida, Chicago, Denver, some bigger patches around Texas, which kind of makes sense, and especially in Southern California. and there's some up in Seattle as well. But generally, this is the same pattern, absolute counts. Now let's do one more. Change it to Asian. It's going to switch back to the counts and amounts dot size. We're going to change that to counts and amounts color. There's that pattern again. So you might be saying to yourself, okay, these maps are pretty much the same. That's not all that interesting. But why is it like this? Well, it's because wherever you have urban areas, you have a lot of everybody. So no matter what ethnicity you pick, you're probably going to see higher concentrations in our biggest urban areas, our biggest cities. Okay, so let's talk about the other way of looking at this data. This was absolute counts, just numbers, just how many people, how many white people, how many Asians, etc. And there was times when you want absolute, but if you want to get a better sense of how many people live in an area in terms of concentration or what percentage of the population, you need to do something different. So we're going to go down here, go back to whites, and we're going to normalize this data. And that word normalization is when you take one part of the population and compare it to another, but more likely you're going to compare it to the total to see what fraction or percentage of the total this group occupies or makes up. It's a rate. It's a rate. It's like miles per hour, but now it's going to be something like uh, number of white people per 100,000 people total. Okay, so it's a fraction. So white, and now we have to do one more thing. Come down here to select counts and amounts, and we're going to see that familiar map again. But now we're going to do something else to it. We're going to hit options for this. So we clicked options, and notice it says divided by. That's sort of a dumbed down version of normalization. Okay, but that is what we're doing when you normalize data. You're comparing it by expressing one over the other. And this time I want you to take the white population and divide it by, you got to scroll down until you find population 2020. Go down to population 2010, population 2020. Okay, and it changes dramatically. And hit OK, and then hit done. Okay, so all of a sudden it looks like the Midwest is filled with white people. But remember, this is not numbers of absolute counts. This is just telling you that relative to the total population in these areas, white people in the dark areas, it's mostly white people. Okay, and that kind of makes sense to us. If I'm driving across country, I'm going to notice it's an awful lot of white people up here. And if I'm driving through the deep south, I'm going to notice there's a lot, it seems like there's a lot more black people. Or over here, like a lot more Hispanic. Okay, all right, we'll see. Let's see if what I just assumed is true. Let's now go back to the symbols, go to symbology. Now we're going to change it to, let's change it to Hispanic. Oops, I missed it there. Change it to Hispanic. It should update automatically, but we're going to have to change it to select. Yeah, we're going to have to go in and hit options, and we're going to have to divide this again by the population 2020. I'll let it sit there since we're going to change it anyway. Well, isn't that what I just said? A lot of Hispanic is it's gonna seem like this is an area with a large population of Hispanic. In other words, to me, what normalization matches is our perceptions of these regions. Okay, but let's be careful. Let's not overdo it because are these Hispanics the same as these Hispanics in Florida or these Hispanics in our area and up into New York? And the Northwest. Okay, we got to be careful. We can't paint a broad brush on this. There's more than one type of a Latino culture. You have Mexicans probably predominantly here in Texas along the Mexican border, but there's quite a few of El Salvadorans in California, and there are especially a lot in our area, and maybe up into New Jersey and in here too. But let's not forget the Puerto Ricans, which are famously known to occupy part of New York. And in what's down here in Florida, most likely it's Cuban. Okay. And I'm not quite sure what it is up here in the Midwest here. You see these have these pockets and these counties. I'm pretty sure though this has to do with livestock and poultry industry. Um, People are going where the jobs are. And I'm not, that's all I can say. I don't really know. I don't want to assume any more than that, but they're probably being lured to opportunities. Okay. All right. So let's change it now we'll hit OK on this. Change Hispanic to Asian. Come on. I passed it again. There it is. Missed it. Change it. Counts and amounts. Change it to this. Hit Options and divide by the population 2020. Now this is interesting, isn't it? The Asian population almost this one almost looks the same as a bit of an unnormalized map, an absolute. It's just they're dispersed all over the country. But let's also remember that Asian is not just Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Filipino, or Vietnamese. It's also Indian, and I think all of the countries that end in Stan are considered parts of Asia. So um, there's probably a lot of Iranian population in Detroit, uh, and wherever there are opportunities, they're kind of going to some of the same counties that the uh, Hispanic population is going to, and these are mostly new arrivals that are just looking for that toehold of a career or a job. But you might also notice that they're college towns, like down here in Blacksburg, in Virginia, in Blacksburg. Why do a lot of Asians come to America? To get master's degrees and PhDs. And so you're going to see that the college towns are lighting up too. All right, so you've now seen the differences between absolute data, which is just counts, and the normalized data, which shows you a relative fraction or a rate, like the number of Asian people relative to the total population or per 100,000 people. Okay. And a good way to think about the difference here is if you were to go into the gymnasium in a PE class and there's 400 people in there, there might be 10 redheads. Okay. But if you went into like the chemistry class and there's 30 students in there and there were three redheads in that class, which would have the higher rate or higher concentration of redheads? Would it be the 10 redheads in the gym out of 400 people, or would it be the three redheads out of 30 people? And that helps you see that obviously the gym has is absolutely got the most, but the relative fraction is higher in that chemistry class. Okay, the normalized rate is higher for the chemistry class than it is for the gymnasium, and the absolute count is higher for the gymnasium than it is for the chemistry class. All right, so that's how they're different. And you have to understand when is it best to use either one of these types of data, which we'll talk about in class. Okay, thank you.